Phoebe looks after her bedroom and her bathroom and largely the kitchen because she has to use it. But Nelson simply doesn't see dirt. And when I go home, I have to clean his bathroom before I can use it because it's just so grim.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I actually looked up someone on taskbnb.com. What was it you said?
Airtasker.
Airtasker. I found someone now, so I'm going to get them to go in and clean it before I go back.
Yeah, right, great.
Because men just don't see dirt in the same way women do. And again, you've got to just realise that they're designed to go out hunting, shooting and fishing and not cleaning.
I'm not sure it's 100% true. I want to avoid generalisations in this because I remember a friend I was at school with and then knew when he was at university and knew for quite a long time until he did the dirty on a girl, his girlfriend, who was a friend of mine. But he would say when he came to stay and was doing the washing up, do you mind if I just clean your tiles? So he would end up scrubbing the grout.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Morning.
Yes, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Still battling jet lag. It's going
I've been worried about you because you haven't been normal this week at all.
Well, for the benefit of the listeners, tell everyone how you know I've not been normal.
Oh, well, I had to send Nicola a message this morning on Facebook Messenger, which says, hold on, I've got so many things open here for this, quite complicated. You are behaving a bit oddly. Your website is offline. You haven't been visible on social media much this week, and you haven't replied to 2 emails I've sent you. Some of these things are out of character.
Well, the website offline is just the final straw in my work overload.
Yes.
I've been awake most nights until 3 o'clock in the morning, being wide awake. I should have bought some serotonin, melatonin, whatever it was when I was in America. And that has carried on into not being around until lunchtime, really, because I've just felt so tired. And then obviously I've come back to my normal workload, which is not onerous, to be honest, but it's then been piled on top of by lots of people wanting my attention and also trying to follow up, lots of follow up. And then I went straight into a 21-day challenge. And I woke up this morning and see my website was down. That was lovely.
Yeah. Actually, somebody contacted, as always used to happen in the olden days, somebody contacted me yesterday because they couldn't raise you. Is Nicola all right? And I suppose, if anything, that just made me realise that subliminally I'd already thought, oh, she's not being normal this week.
Yeah.
Not that you're always normal. Do you know what I mean? But you have a sort of core normal.
Yeah, a core normal, which is abnormal by most people.
Yes, quite.
I've had this weird side effect of this jet lag, and it's my limbs feel really heavy. I've never experienced this feeling in my life before, so I've been Googling, obviously, and frightening myself with thoughts of horrible wasting diseases. But Sue O'Kell told me this morning that she gets that with jet lag, so I'm hoping it's just a fatigue sort of thing.
As I said to you at some point in the week, one of our listeners did predict this, Amanda Johnson, I think she said, oh, you're going to need more rest than that, Nicola, I think she said.
Thanks, Amanda. You were right. But apart from that, the week's been hectic, fun, but battling with these weird sensations and just trying to get my washing done. Things like that just feel insurmountable. Yeah,
I know what you mean. Actually, yeah.
But my cleaner has given herself a rise and an extra hour a week, telling me in her broken Albanian / Greek that she can't get me clean in 2 hours a week. So.
Yeah, fair enough. You're grubby. Speaking of cleaners, mine may let herself in the front door during the course of this call.
Oh, okay. Well, where are you at the moment? I've lost track of you.
I'm in just about tomorrow. I begin my last week in Bedfordshire, where I'm happy as Larry. And the cleaner has moved her day from Friday to Thursday because in England this week it's a bank holiday weekend, and she's going.
Oh yes, a long bank holiday weekend. Another one.
No, not a long one, just Monday off. And we get 2 in May. We always used to have one at the end of May, which this one is called. It used to be called Whitsun, and it generally coincides with half term. The other one, the one was inserted at the beginning of May, my father always used to call the Socialist Bank Holiday because it's May Day, and that is some kind of Johnny-come-lately bank holiday in the UK, which I'm not altogether sure what it's about, but if you Google May Day, you'll discover the historical.
Well, I think it comes from a Celtic festival, doesn't it, of dancing around a maypole?
No, I don't think it does. I mean, I think there is such a thing, but the reason it was made a bank holiday in my lifetime is for quasi-political reasons, I believe.
Oh, okay. Don't get us started on politics.
No, indeed. And Monday, of course, while Whitsun in the UK, if we're going to call it that, is Memorial Day in America, and they're having the same bank holiday weekend as us.
Oh, very nice. I remember the first one because I had Phoebe on that weekend, and it was absolutely blindingly hot. So, and it has been ever since. I don't think there's been a rainy Phoebe's birthday ever since.
No, and often Easter, strangely, is sunny as well. And it was lovely about 2 weeks ago, and then it got a bit chilly, and now it's back to lovely again.
Well, good news. Greece has got its first sunny day for 2 weeks. So.
Oh, very good. So you've had grim weather since you've been back?
Yeah, well, it's been a bit grey. It's been all right.
Oh, that might bring you down if it feels sort of heavy.
No, it was okay.
Okay.
It was okay. It's nice. Right. Okay. I'm going down the beach later in my new Marks & Spencer's brightly coloured swimsuit. I'm
lovely.
The natives.
Good. You've moved away from black, have you?
Yeah, I've still got a black one. I bought a new black one. Can't move away from that.
No, everybody's got a black swimming costume except me. It's so dull, the black ones. I look at the pages and pages of black swimming costumes and I think, oh no, they're so dull.
Well, everyone's got this theory that it makes you look thinner, but really...
Yes, I know. It's bollocks, isn't it? Yeah. Oops. Yes, it's crap. Yes. Oh, I replaced bollocks with crap. That's not good. Sorry. You might have to beep me.
No, I'm only beeping out the serious swear words.
Okay.
So what's your week been like then?
I've got loads to tell you in this first... No, don't get excited. Half of it's great and half of it's very sad.
Oh, no.
Yes, okay, let's start at the beginning. Last Sunday was a family party for my nephew's 30th birthday. It was wonderful. Family, lovely, new clothes, new hair, happy and harmonious. I looked and I felt wonderful, and I was much admired and welcomed because I'd not seen anybody since Christmas Day, and they'd missed me, and it showed, and I came away feeling, very much loved and appreciated and squidged. And typically for the Morgans, it was a 12-hour gig fueled by much alcohol, but mostly not for me, although I did try something called a dark and stormy. Do you know what a dark and stormy is? No, I don't know. It's rum and ginger beer.
Oh, it sounds absolutely repulsive.
I won't be rushing back to a dark and stormy because although I do like rum when on holiday in the Caribbean, I don't have any time in the world for ginger beer, I'm afraid.
Well, ginger beer is only good for putting in tequila and slamming on a worktop.
Well, they gave me at Christmas time a Jaeger bomb, which is whatever Jaeger.
Yeah, I've never actually had one, Judith.
No, so but it's mixed with those are mixed with Red Bull, and this is mixed with ginger beer. And interesting, I preferred the spirits in both of the drinks to the mixer.
Yeah.
I don't like Red Bull and I don't like ginger beer. Anyway, even though I don't drink. But I get home after an all-night party like that, I feel the next day like I'm hungover.
Yeah.
And I knew I would. So I organised my diary that my first and only work appointment was at 5:00 in the afternoon. And I didn't get out of my nightie all day. I slept until lunchtime. And I saw you did that one day this week as well. Yeah. And during that time when I was sleeping Monday morning, for some unknown reason, the gardener came, let himself in the side gate, mowed the lawn underneath my bedroom window and tidied everything up. And although he was outside my bedroom window, I just let him get on with his magic and I dozed through it. And I woke up to it all wonderfully done at about lunchtime. The interesting thing is that gardening man has been twice since I've lived here and I haven't even seen his face yet. Just sort of heard him doing it, which is sort of magic. Now, I've got to get on to some sad news, which I want to do as discreetly as I can. It's a tribute to a man called Kevin who died this week, a member of Small Business Big Magic for years and years. He had, I think, well, he was very ill in the second half of last year and recovered. And then he contacted me via my Facebook page last week, and we spoke on the telephone because he was waiting for the ambulance to come to take him back to hospital. His voice was very weak on the phone, but I think we both thought that he would pull through. And then his sister put a message on his Facebook page on Tuesday, I think. He was a lovely man. He was unique. And I've put it in the Small Business Big Magic group, but I want to share what I learned from Kevin. Because he was unique, he was consequently quite hard to get to know. But when you did, oh boy, was it worth it. He was a really highly techie, geeky consultant by day on a contract basis. And he was an extreme introvert. He found it very difficult to be with people. When he came to play cash flow with us in September 2016, he took 2 timeouts and went to sleep on the sofa in the middle of the thing. And I thought, oh my God, you're such a weirdo. How am I going to cope with you? How am I going to... But actually, we came to really appreciate each other by just sort of sticking with each other, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But outside of his day job, he taught yoga and Alexander technique. But he studied long and hard, and he'd been all over the world learning these things. And he was always often away for sort of 6 weeks breaks. Again, learning these things at sort of top, quite academic level, which was very much Kevin. And I think that he didn't have huge amounts of clients because of this very unique, subtle personality that he had, but his ideal clients will miss him very much. And we're all very sad in Small Business Big Magic, actually. He grew on me, and he was a gift in that he taught me that people do not have to behave how I expect. He got under my skin, and I got the feeling that he hired me to help him process his thoughts, but particularly his feelings. And although we are going to talk in this episode mostly about women this week, Kevin and our other male listeners are also very much appreciated. Yeah. So farewell, Kevin. Glad to have known you. Much too sad, shorter life. I don't think he was 50. I think he was in his 40s somewhere.
Yes, that is sad.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I know some people listening who have been in Small Business Big Magic in the past might not know that if they're not actually following him on Facebook. So, and I know they listen in this podcast. So I wanted to share it, but also it's hit me harder than I expected. Funnily enough,
I can hear that in your voice.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I mean, and there wasn't anywhere else to put it in here because it certainly hasn't fueled my fire. But I think knowing Kevin and working with Kevin, unique Kevin. We've got to talk about Kevin, was good for me. Yeah. And you did it. You did a little eulogy beautifully there. Ah, thank you. Let's move on to. I hope you've got something happier to tell me in what's fueled your fire.
It's I've got a 21-day challenge on the go at the moment.
Oh yes,
full of people from America, which is gearing the energy levels up quite dramatically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. I've finally settled. I did a 30-day challenge, then I did a 14-day challenge, and I did a 7-day challenge, and I finally settled on a 21-day challenge, of which they don't know yet. But 14 days are action steps, and the remaining 7 days are catch up and
yeah.
They come out of it with ideally with a recurring plan for how to do 12. Well, they've already worked out their first 12 weeks of content, although they don't realise that yet, because if you tell them things like that, they get overwhelmed and discouraged. But so I've got them to simply list down the top 12 issues that their ideal client faces. And they don't know yet that that's going to become their next 12 weeks content with a recurring plan for the next year.
You've just blown it now, though, haven't you?
Yeah, but luckily this won't go out for a couple of weeks. So
that's true, yes.
And it's really good because they'll come out with it with a lot more than they think they're going to. So over delivering, which is I love to do that. And I anticipate out of a group of about 48 that I'll probably get 2 or 3 paying clients from it. But as half the group, I think, are the Americans that I've already given a membership to.
Yes.
I don't know how that'll pan out. So, but I did do Facebook ads to fill the group as well. So I'm hopeful there are quite a lot of delicious strangers in there, and I'm just really enjoying it because I've done all of the hard work before. So it's really just a question of, putting in links to the videos that I've already recorded, putting in links to the resources that I've already created, and it's pretty good. But I did have to get up I went to a party next door last night, and I did have to get up came back at 11 to go to bed, because I actually felt tired at the right time for once. So I thought, better take advantage of this. And then I got up at 12:15 again to go and put day 4 on auto post, because I knew I wouldn't be up early this morning. So now I'm really enjoying it. It's great fun. And if you've ever thought of doing a challenge, then happy to chat it through if you want to contact me on Facebook.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Mine's a little small one, but quite a big impact. I was describing, or everything in the podcast this week has been inspired by people I met at that party on Sunday. And I was describing to a young woman I met there what I do for a living. And she works for Goldman Sachs, and everybody in my family and their friends, as per the opening line of my book, is an employee. And she was amazed by what I do and reminded me how proud I should be of it, and said there needed to be much more of it in the world, especially from the angle of support for women. She was basically mourning the fact that, although coaching exists in the corporate world, that women really need more support because the world is unequal.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, one of my people in the 21-day challenge, Dr. Alvin, is one of the people I met in America.
Yeah.
He specifically works, he's a professor, and he specifically works with minority talent in big organisations. Minority being, black and mixed race talent.
Yes.
And he said it's really, I said, is it really a big problem? Do you need to, because he focuses very much on that in his marketing materials. And I said, do you really need to be that overt about it? And he said, yes, we do, because there is such rampant racism.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's very similar to rampant sexism, isn't it? They've got,
yes.
Still, although you feel that you shouldn't need to make a big deal out of this, it's so bad that people do need to make a big deal out of it.
Yes.
To bring people just up to a level where they're competing on an equal playing field, because they're obviously not still.
No, that's right.
I've got a couple of book recommendations for your niece or whoever she was.
No, she was a complete stranger that works for Goldman Sachs. That girl, you mean?
Yes. Two of the best books I've ever read on business networking and career advancement were Take Yourself to the Top by Laura Berman Fortgang. Absolute gold in there. And the other one is Love is the Killer App. And I can't remember who that's by, but it's easily found. It's a very well-known business book, and it teaches you how to network really naturally and effectively within organisations and even outside them.
I think her problem was that male colleagues with whom she was ostensibly equal put her down, and there clearly was a climate to keep women down.
Yeah. But in order to battle that, she does need to build a strong network of females across her industry.
To be honest, she was the worst to wear for alcohol when we were having this conversation. But I got the gist of her thing. I may never see her again, actually, because that's how parties work, isn't it? But no, the point that fueled my fire was, I'm sort of winding down in my coaching business, and she just had never really heard. She couldn't really, because she's an employee, she couldn't get how self-employed people / women, start up something from scratch and then seek out the support of another woman that's done it to help them. And she was just sort of extrapolating that to corporate life and saying, wow, and she just made me realize that I should be more proud of the work I've done and do because of how valuable it is in our world. Yeah. And how I mean, I'm constantly struck by people who come out of corporate life who think they can start something. I mean, Sue and I we're talking this morning about a chap who has, he's got quite a good product, quite a good offer, but he absolutely thinks that he can do wonderful things with it, with no audience, no mailing list, no website that's converting people into leads or anything. It's just the basics, the absolute basics of marketing a business.
just seem to completely, well, I suppose they've never been taught.
Oh, exactly. That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. So he's got the overconfidence of a man from corporate life.
Yeah.
And he knows nothing about how to be self-employed.
No. Or how to market himself or his product.
No. Well, I mean, if he's prepared to learn, we're cooking.
Well, no, he actually sounds like he wants to pay someone to do it, but he's been burnt several times by people promising the earth, and so he wants us. It's a catch-22 really, because he wants us to prove ourselves, and we're at the point where we don't need to prove ourselves anymore.
No. How interesting is that? I was on a webinar last night where somebody asked the other person for their cred, and he said, "I don't feel the need to provide it to you. Thanks very much for asking."
That was good.
Yeah, something like that. That was the gist of it. And I thought, wow.
I usually just say, just Google me.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't do it, then nothing will.
Yes, no, quite. Yeah.
Okay, so what's our focus of the week then?
Yeah, it's about women. And it's inspired by a mother of three that I've known. Let me say, her oldest daughter is the same age as my niece, which is 32 today. And I imagine the parents were probably about 35 years ago, and I knew her before she married her husband. So let's say I've known her somewhere between 35 and 40 years, and she's given birth to three beautiful, glorious, striking, attractive, high-achieving, funny, beautiful, did I say that, girls. And the youngest one of which, or one of them, the brunette-y, redheady one, is my 30-year-old nephew's girlfriend, whose flat I stayed in a couple of weeks ago. And the other two are blondes, and one is a financial journalist, and the other one does something like copywriting in Camden. Anyway, they're lovely. But their mother mentioned this article to me by Caitlin Moran, most of which I'm going to have to read to you, I'm afraid, to get this debate started. And it's about the advice. Younger women are always asking older women for advice. And she and her friends, Caitlin Moran, who's a writer, as you know, and regularly featured in the Times, written a book called How to Be a Woman, which I didn't like. We read it in book club. But, you know, she's opinionated and feisty, and she's a person you would go to for a soundbite, a controversial soundbite. And she's a bit mustardy, which is marmitey, which is a good thing. You either love her or don't. But she has opinions. And she says we'll tell our daughters when they ask us what's the best thing to do. When you feel that you are lost in the sea of life, pick the thing you love to do most and use that as a star to steer by. You must not tolerate having an unkind inner voice. And then it all gets a bit silly about, you know, salmon-coloured blouses make your eyes look like ham. But then there was a debate amongst the women of her age in their 40s about what should you tell your daughters? And obviously this is why it spoke to my friend about what is it that we don't tell them. And while my friends had many suggestions, the most passionate of which invariably involved the unspoken, well, we won't go that, it's all about childhood. Okay, yes. The one I've always felt most reluctant about is this: 9 times out of 10, a woman's life will only be as good as the man she marries. Now, this is quite a difficult thing for me to read, although I know in many respects it's true, and it's probably quite a different. Oh, there she goes. I don't want to say this. I don't want it to be true. I've never said it before because it feels, on first analysis, to be unfeminist to tell bright, hardworking, joyous women that it doesn't matter how incredible they are, how many degrees they get, how many businesses they start up for scratch, if they then shack up with a self-pitying man who's not very good at replying to texts, freaks out when they have kids, doesn't use the washing machine because I'm just not good at stuff like that, and always has to see the guys at the weekend to wind down, and flies into terrifying rages, for example, if he can't find his favourite suede jacket. They are doomed. We want those women to do well. They should still get promoted, be happy and succeed in life because of their sheer determination, hard will and charisma, but they almost certainly won't. Life is an experiment that bears this out. I'm 42 now. Of all the married women I know who have children, all the ones who are successful in their careers and are happy are, without exception, the ones who married, for the want of a better word, good men. Gentle, clever, kind, funny men, usually in cardigans, who just show up for everything. Ones who, at a bare minimum, cut it 50-50 with the housework, childcare, and emotional upkeep. Furthermore, and again without exception, the women who have done the best in their careers and are happiest have the partners who do more than 50-50. The more their partners do, the more they engage in childcare and housework, the higher those women fly. It's amazing that this shouldn't be an obviously known fact, the equivalent of knowing that if you marry a butcher, you'll have a lot of sausages, or that if you marry a lighthouse, or that if you marry a lighthouse keeper, you'll live in a lighthouse. The maths are simple. However, if you have children, you can only have as much career and happiness as your partner will help make for you. You are dependent on him because all you have is your time. And as we all have a finite amount of the stuff, even tiniest increments count. Even a man who does 40% of the childcare and housework, who you think is a good guy, 40%, that's nearly half, is leaving 10% of his shit for you to sort out. His trousers to wash, his kids to raise, his meals to prepare. Here's what that would look like if it were a picture. And this was what my friend Liz said to me. A woman pulling a sledge on which her career and her children sat, with her partner occasionally jumping on 10% of the time to chill. This is why, of all things, young women say, I'm into bad boys, makes older women wince as hard as if they have just said, I'm into heroin. No, girls, you do not want a bad boy. If you find yourself saying that, go and get cognitive behavioral therapy right now, or else say out loud, I formally renounce all my plans for a career and happiness in order to marry the wrong man. Because if she wants children, a woman's life is only as good as the man she marries. And that's the biggest unspoken truth I know. Now, it's very controversial, isn't it? Because I didn't marry and I don't have children, and you did marry and had children and dispensed with the lovely Irving. And we've struggled on alone. But my clients who have children, this is very much it. And some of them, most of them are married to nice men, but they are still frustrated that they have to try and build this business and rebuild their self-esteem after child rearing years off work around taking care of everything at home. And sometimes that's the deal. But, you know, they don't have much time. I'm always talking about these 6 weeks either side of half term. And, you know, actually it's shorter than that because it's by the time you get back from taking them to school. And then when you've got to leave to go and fetch them from school. So Caitlin and I will shut up now. Tell me what it provokes in you.
Well, first thing, I've got to disabuse you of the notion that the lovely Irving was perfect because he used to look after the children, but I still had to pay for a cleaner because he didn't seem able to look after the children and clean the house.
No, I knew he wasn't perfect, Nicola. I knew he wasn't perfect.
Anyway, I sat round a table last night of 6 strong women, 6 strong, independent, clever, funny women who gradually, one by one, revealed their horror stories of their marriages and partnerships, where it was all about being beaten. It was all about people with mental illnesses that everyone tried to look after and put up with because there was no support. It was all about, and Jenny, the lady who's been married 5 times, twice to the bad boy, now says she's happily married now, and it was all about kindness.
Yeah.
I think the problem is we're all attracted to the alpha male warrior types when we want to have children because we somehow instinctively know they're going to produce the best specimens. But then I think we move on to another kind of relationship, which in my case, I went from a beta male to an alpha male. And then now I'm in a position where I actually don't think I'm ever going to let another man in my house again. I'm very happy to have romantic encounters and or lovers, but I am not letting anyone to live in my house again. Because the minute I do, they'll be expecting me to do everything for the house and run it. You know, it just is hardwired into them.
Now stop. Let's just stop for a minute because I know we've got some lovely men who listen to this show who bear a goodly chunk, if not 50%. And actually, her point is it's got to be 50 or it's worth nothing. But let's try not to tar them all with the same brush just because we've had some bad personal experiences. Now carry on as you were.
We're just hardwired into our roles, and I think the best. I thought what you said about cognitive behavioural therapy was very funny.
She's very funny. She's a funny writer. Yeah.
I just honestly do believe we're still operating from a caveman mentality, and that's why when I finally got around to reading Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, it really helped me to realise that because it posits that theory that we're all operating in a very sophisticated world with lots of different pressures, but we're still hardwired to be operating as if we were cave people. And once you know that, you can forgive the other species their shortcomings, and you just have to find ways to work around it. But you're banging your head against a brick wall if you really expect them to simply appreciate the things that need to be done and to do them. You just can't. You're on a hiding to nothing with that. It's like the definition of insanity is expecting things to change when everything stays the same.
Yes. Now,
and it's not going to change anytime soon. So
what you said the ladies last night were complaining about were beatings. Well, obviously the day he beats you, you leave. That's a no. That's an absolute. I totally agree. It's the one straight up and down rule I have in my life. The minute you're beaten, you leave. However, a whole series of programs on the BBC this week is about variants of mental illness. Perfectly normal, high achieving, nice men and women. So Nadia, who won the Bake Off, David Harewood, who's that gorgeous black actor from Homeland, and Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's spin doctor, and PTSD episode I haven't seen yet, which is I'm assuming, I can't remember who that is. But they're using famous people to show us how normal and everyday and usual mental illnesses are. Now, neither of us are perfect. I don't think I'm mentally ill. I think I might have flirted with depression in the last decade. If I loved somebody and was involved with them seriously and they wore a cardigan and took 50% of their share of the stuff, then, and we're married, or not even, actually, I've said that we will look after each other in sickness and health. So what sort of mental illness is a deal breaker, and what sort of mental illness is normal in quite a lot of relationships?
Well, the lady I was speaking to last night, she had 3 small children under 10. She lived in a 7-bedroom house near Brighton. Her husband was paranoid schizophrenic and kept a knife under the bed.
Ooh.
And he used to say to her children that when she saw them off to boarding school, which is where they had to be, he insisted they were sent, say goodbye to your mummy because you won't see her again before you come home.
Oh, God.
And she still couldn't get him sectioned. And it was because he never actually did anything. He only made threats, and that's not a sectionable offence, apparently.
Oh, okay.
And so we're talking about living with a level of fear that must have been crippling. And she said, where was I to go? And because we were all going, why don't you leave? He said, where was I to go? The only relative I had was my mother, and she lived in a 2-bedroom council house at the other end of the country. I decided to stick it out. Eventually, she did move. He did buy her a little house nearby, so that she could sleep somewhere else, because she just, she put her foot down eventually. She's like, I am going to leave. But things like they'd get into their Rolls Royce to drive to London to go and buy a school uniform, and he would get out of the car to get petrol, and he would come back and he'd say, we're going to be a bit delayed because the man in the petrol station's just told me I've got to sweep the floor to the whole forecourt to pay for the petrol. I mean, this was so reminiscent of my mother and towards the end Steve, bless him, who used to say the most ridiculously daft things. But I found it easier to cope with Steve than I did with my mother, and in a way it helped me forgive her for being mad, because I loved him so much I was able to cope with it. But coming back to the whole thing about chores particularly, I think you've just got to teach your daughters why each chore is a round thing in itself. So the washing is one round thing, the laundry is one round thing, and cleaning the house is one round thing. And each person has to take responsibility for a number of round things, because if you try and split the tasks, his won't get done properly to your satisfaction.
Well, I think that's the bone of contention quite often, isn't it? Is that, look, aren't I good? I've put the dirty plates next to the dishwasher, but you've neither unloaded the clean stuff or put the dirty stuff inside. And we are a bit particular about things like that. I've just noticed on the bottom of this article there's a very nice comment that says, life is infinitely better without the wrong man. Offloading his 50% from my sledge was sheer heaven. Basically, it's carrying your own half share of everything that's involved in running a family and a household, or even just 2 careers.
And some people would rather have company and sacrifice 50% part of their 50%, because most people don't want to be alone. What I found is that I'm not only enjoying the peace of being alone, and not because I do find relationships quite difficult. I also love the fact that if it's to be, if it's to happen, I've either got to get someone in to get it done, or I've got to do it.
Yeah.
There's none of this tension of, asking someone to do something and being,
No.
and then, the constant disappointment and constant, trying to get things done. But when I go home to England, I really notice Phoebe looks after her bedroom and her bathroom and largely the kitchen because she has to use it. But Nelson simply doesn't see dirt. And when I go home, I have to clean his bathroom before I can use it because it's just so grim.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I actually looked up someone on taskbnb.com. What was it you said?
Airtasker.
Airtasker. I found someone now, so I'm going to get them to go in and clean it before I go back.
Yeah, right, great.
Because men just don't see dirt in the same way women do. And again, you've got to just realise that they're designed to go out hunting, shooting and fishing and not cleaning.
I'm not sure it's 100% true. I want to avoid generalisations in this because I remember a friend I was at school with and then knew when he was at university and knew for quite a long time until he did the dirty on his girlfriend who was a friend of mine. But he would say when he came to stay and was doing the washing up, do you mind if I just clean your tiles? So he would end up scrubbing the grout between. So I think it's people are different. What you've got to negotiate, and this is so tricky because we used to have this issue in the Money Gym where, two people living together, maritally or otherwise, men or women or one of each or two of both, would not have the same view about money.
Yeah.
And I think you've got the same issue here, which is despite the fact that we don't agree about it, we have to respect each other's differences and negotiate. Like we used to recommend, Mr. and Mrs. Smith PLC, and you had a board meeting and it was all discussed separately from your relationship. And so you didn't use anything to do with how the other spent as a weapon in a row, which is quite difficult not to do, but that, we taught them how to do that.
Yeah.
I think this is the same. It's a negotiation. And I think the problem is with women, we're so nice and we want to make everything nice for everybody, particularly people that we love, that actually we've set the pattern in the first 6 weeks of our relationship.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And then it's so difficult to come down from that, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not blaming men because they can't see dirt and they don't do so. Or there are men that do pull their weight, but they're not perceived as sexy and attractive in the early days of a woman's life unless she's really sensible. Then we've got to. I think we've got to accept that you're probably going to have 3 big relationships in your life. The starter one, which you warm up on, the one you have babies with, and then the one you if you're lucky, you meet afterwards when you're a bit more sensible again. Because I think it's hormones that I blame for everything. And you've just got to get to grips with that stuff. But you're right, negotiating is coming from a place of why should women do any more than half? And I hope, in fact, I'm pretty sure that Phoebe is very well inoculated in the thing of, if it doesn't get done, then you have to pay a cleaner for it.
Yeah.
Or whatever, because she doesn't see why she should do any more than Nelson.
No, I think that's right. And I think that I think respect comes into it, and a recognition that I think a man's attitude to what goes on at home changes throughout his life and career. And I think if you love and respect your other half, whoever's staying at home and whoever's going to work. But I think what the point she's making in this article, leaving aside all domestic and sexual politics for a moment and gender politics, is if you're taking more than 50% of your share, it's limiting your opportunity to build a business or have a successful career.
Yeah.
And that's where it's pertinent to our podcast.
Yeah, and how can...
And I think it works the other way around. I'm thinking of the men that listen that we love. Works the same for you. If you're home-based and she's going off to work, unless it's what you've agreed and you're doing more of your share because you contribute less, financially or whatever logical reasons the two of you have come up with, it's got to feel fair and it's got to involve respect and it's got to involve a sort of adult-like appreciation of, if I'm to live in this house with you, these are my minimum standards of cleanliness, and anything else that's relevant.
You've hit on a key word there, because how can anyone respect a doormat? So if someone's not standing up for themselves and saying what they need, they're being a doormat, and nobody's.
Well, you're inviting somebody to walk all over you, aren't you? But I do think you get a bit martyry about it if you're going, sigh, look at all this shit all over the place. I'll have to clean it up.
Yeah. Well, just don't put it in the bin. And that's what I used to do.
Or leave it there. You know those adverts for washing powder. Mum, where are my clean trousers? Well, they're still where you left them, dirty in the middle of the bathroom floor.
The other thing about respect is unfortunately that is ultimately what killed my marriage, was because subconsciously I lost respect for someone who was. And I hate to say this, I was biggest feminist of all. I thought it would be brilliant. I thought having someone around who, I could earn more at that time, and Irving couldn't. And unfortunately, I lost respect for him. And it wasn't his fault or anything he did. It was something subliminally subconscious in me that just couldn't respect someone who wasn't as thrusting. And
you couldn't find a cardigan sexy?
I loved a cardigan. I particularly love cardigans. I really like those ones with leather buttons. But the problem was that if, it wasn't what I needed and wanted at that time in my life.
Yeah.
And I, if I look on him, we're best friends now.
Yes, I know.
And it wasn't his fault. It wasn't anything he did. It was just something subconscious and very primeval in me that needed someone who was more alpha male at the time.
Yes.
Because I'm a female, I want someone who's going to be assertive with me and who's going to be the man.
Oh boy, do you need that, Nicola. Now, I'm remembering a story that I had. What I like in a man is that he listens to me. And that only happened once. All the other ones did all the talking.
Yeah.
Unbelievably. And I remember one of them once, not only did... So I would talk and then the conversation would go back to him. But he also required me to sort of do everything for him, to look after him. And I think sometimes that's a precedent set by mothers and grandmothers, isn't it? Is that men are looked after because they're more important. It certainly was in my family. But I remember I developed a technique, which was when he asked for something, I would ask for something back, whether I needed it or not, to train him into the habit of this is a 50-50 thing, a yin-yang thing. I give, you give, I ask, you ask, and that in a way where it feels fair. So I think, back to the sledge point, don't push any more than half of it up the hill yourself.
So I mean, we could talk about this all day, couldn't we? Really? Tell me about the man who listened. Did you find him as attractive as the others?
Oh my God, I loved him.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That was the most attractive thing he did, really.
Oh, listen.
Well, because to be fully heard.
Yeah, if that's one of your love languages.
Oh, it's heavenly.
We can talk about. I mean, love languages was talked about a lot last night as well, because it's all very well doing the thing you do well to show love for someone, but if that someone doesn't perceive that as a love gift, they're never going to respect it or want it.
I mean, he wasn't just a listener; he was a talker too, a conversationalist. But when I was talking, he wouldn't steer the conversation back to himself all of the time.
Yeah, now let's talk about me again.
Yes, quite well, which is a game Marion and I play quite a lot, because one does need to. Well, I think one way of sort of learning and appreciating your partner is to listen. And obviously, I would, because that's my work, isn't it? Of course, it's and that's why I like audio and all that kind of thing. Yeah. I want to be in conversation with people, but I want to be heard too in a relationship.
There is a great book called The 5 Languages of Love, I think it is. And I would highly recommend, as well as Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, I would really recommend people, because you've got to be with someone who shows love in the way that you feel love and need love to be shown. Otherwise, you're on a hiding to nothing, both of you. And
I think you've both got to be in a relationship which you both value and invest in. And respect each other and are willing to work at. Absolutely. So even though none of us like cleaning, we're prepared to do it for the sake of our relationship and our household harmony.
Or pay a cleaner. Easy peasy.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I've got very high standards, but I wouldn't be living to those very high standards if I wasn't paying a cleaner, because I wouldn't be doing it.
Well, no. I mean, I have a sort of rhythm within the week, which is it's all clean and tidy and I'm very neat and tidy. And then by my own standards, there's sort of 2 and 3 days towards the middle to the end of the week where it all gets a bit slummy. And then the cleaning ladies come. So I have to organise things so that she can clean. It's a sort of weekly cycle, which I quite like.
Yeah, it's a rhythm.
Yes, it is. Yes. Anyway, moving swiftly along. Don't push more than half of your sledge.
We haven't dealt with any strategies for what to do if the other person won't take their 50%.
Oh. Well, I think as long as that's by agreement. Now, for instance, my brother and sister-in-law agreed that because his career was based overseas, she wouldn't work. She would educate the children to supplement the level of education that they were getting over there, education being very important to her. And that was their agreement, and it worked pretty well. But when they have rows, my brother's inclined to use his earning power as a weapon. I don't think he does it so much anymore because he's more mature and he understands things better. And she feels very disadvantaged that having lost those at times, not now I think again, but at times in those 20 years, because she hadn't worked, she couldn't work. Because if you haven't taken on 20 years worth of work experience, you're just always going to be an office junior who answers the phones.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. We haven't talked about the economic impact of having children.
Well, I mean, it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue. But we haven't really talked, despite the fact that we are women, we haven't talked enough about women, the lot of women, in a way that isn't angry.
I don't like the word lot because it sounds so final.
Okay.
And non-negotiable.
Role.
Yeah.
Place. Yeah.
We're
options, choices.
Decade. We're in a pivotal generation, I think, because women, like young women like Phoebe, 24, they've grown up watching women like me who were feminists in the 70s and have tried to be feminists through my marriage. I think they're a lot less compromising. I think I'm worried. I worry for them in the fact that I don't think the men are ready for it.
No, I agree with you. So I see that in my niece. And also the girl from Goldman's made me realise that nothing has changed, despite all those years we thought we were putting in for the benefit of younger women. Yeah,
so there you go. That's where the anger comes from.
Yeah, it can do. Yes, it can do. I'm controlling it well today. Now, darling, we've used up a lot of space on this, and we will return, and maybe the listeners will give us some aspects of this sort of discussion they would like us to negotiate or talk about. Yeah. And if indeed any of our listeners are experts in this sort of thing, they could be in my next round of listener guests giving us some tips.
Absolutely.
So we're not turning this into a feminist rant. We're just talking about, ideal situations, whether you're employed or self-employed, whether you're a man or a woman. Take and give your fair share.
Yeah. Okay, word of the week then.
Yeah, mine's women. That's it, obviously.
Okay. Well, that was short and sweet. Mine's grit. Yeah. Grit, because I just had to grit my teeth and get on with it. Every time my arms and legs went all weak and floppy and heavy, I've just had to sit down for a minute and then get up and carry on.
Yes, I find when I use grit, which I do quite often, everything works a little bit better than I think it might.
Oh, okay. The very act of being gritty.
Well, there must be some adrenaline involved in grit.
Yeah, possibly. I don't need any more of that. I suspect that's what I'm coming down from.
Yes, perhaps. You always did do that, do you remember?
No, but it doesn't last 2 weeks normally. I'm not getting any younger though, am I?
No, it's that. But also, you've had quite a lot of international travel. It's like Australia. It was like Shoreham, Australia, Shoreham, Stupor. Oh my God, she's back in Shoreham because she's going to Vegas, Shoreham, Stupor. That's quite a lot, Nicola, for any person in a shortish period of time.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yep.
Project updates.
Yeah, I want you to give me the download numbers. Oh, right. What have you got?
Well, I've got some really good news for you.
Good.
I thought I hallucinated this when I was in Vegas, but I saw our podcast shoot up into the top 40 of the What's Hot chart.
Oh.
Now, the top 30 is what appears above the fold, so you still have to scroll a little bit to see the top 40.
Yeah.
But if someone's looking for a new podcast on entrepreneurship or, anything like that, and they go to the What's Hot chart, we are... And I really thought I'd hallucinated it, because when I came back, it had gone again. In fact, not only had it gone from the top 40, it had gone from the top 100. So I was thinking, well, what's going on? Anyway, I had a look the other day, I don't know why, and we were back in the top 40 again. Unfortunately, I didn't take a screenshot of it. But I thought, okay, so something's happening with the algorithm. And I had a look today, and we're in the top 63, whereas normally we've been in the top 80 all the time. So it's definitely moving around according to download numbers, and I think the reviews might have...
And I think every day you look, so if you look on a Friday, or which is our most listened day, it would be higher than on a Thursday.
I think your work getting new reviews has helped too. So having a look today at our numbers, I've seen that our release day spikes are a lot more obvious. We've had release day spikes of, we had that week where we had something like 7,000 downloads in 1 week. And since then, we've had release day spikes of about 2.5 to 300 with good solid follow-up in the days afterwards. So definitely something's happening. If we could get into the top 30 of iTunes, that would be awesome, because we'd be so visible then. It would be brilliant.
Well, let's make that your project, because I'm going to tell you about, anything else in the sector?
No, I'm still ploughing through my editing of the Money Gym audio preparatory to putting it on Audible, which is a very slow, painful business. And I can't believe how many fluffs I left in there last time I did it. So very difficult to listen to yourself banging on. Makes me sleepy every time.
Okay. So my stats are up to 8 on Patreon, as I told you last week, 191 in the Facebook group, which isn't that many, actually, if we're getting 400 downloads a week. Do come and join our free Facebook group. And I've booked in all 4 of the listening guests for the 7th of June with a couple of spares in the background if we need it, and emailed you to set up the Zooms.
Oh, yes, I saw that. That's why you didn't get a reply, because I haven't had time to do it yet.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And then I emailed you, go and look at your emails now. I sent you a lovely comment that you'd had. You might want to read it out loud. It's a podcast-related story. Open up your email. I sent it to you last night.
Yes, I did see it. And
can you read it to me?
I can, 1 second.
Because I think the listeners will enjoy it.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think the inbox on our Facebook page, it's only you and me that can see it. I don't think other people can see that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's quite a nice story, this. You'll like this.
Synchronicity, frightening, really. Hi, Nicola and Judith. Loving your podcast, and I have a rather intriguing story as to how I came across the both of you. In fact, I write a weekly email called Synchronize Me Sunday, and this story definitely deserves a place in next week's letter, even though I've just finished listening to the podcast about Judith bringing her newsletter to an end. So a few weeks ago, I posted on my personal Facebook page a photo of a recent haul at Lidl supermarket during their Greek week. The caption mentioned that it was more reminiscent of a trip to Katerina's supermarket, Stupa, than a Saturday morning shop in England, I think she means. A local Facebook friend remarked about why had I mentioned Stupa, and did I listen to a podcast that talks about Stupa all the time? No, I replied, but I used to live there. Many spanakopitous later, which are cheese pies, by the way, I wondered if there could be a link to the Facebook Stupa business page. Then I got distracted by my work. I'm in the coaching business, another synchronicity coincidence. A couple of weeks later, said Facebook friend messaged me about something else. So I inquired, is it someone called Nicola that talks about Stupa on the podcast? Yes, she replied. And to add to the story, she is a client of Judith's, Nicola Semple. So we both live in Reigate, Surrey. How about that for a strange coincidence? Nicola, I was one of Stupa's first holiday reps, lived there for around 5 summers circa 1990 to 1995. I went there in 89 for the first time and went every year for the next 5 years. I must have met this lady. When I wasn't repping, I could be found on Calogria Beach or the beach bar called Beach Bar, one of my favourites, Mythos nightclub, now called Enigma, or Yanni's bar opposite Calogria. Don't actually remember that one, but I'm sure I'll find it. Forever named Apple Bar. Oh, I think I do know where it is. It's turned into a pizza place now. Plus Stecky's, obviously the ubiquitous Stecky's bar. I didn't return for years as I built my life back in the UK, but was invited out for my very old friend Antonia's wedding in 2014, where about 100 crazy party people descended upon the village to celebrate her nuptials. After reuniting with most of the village and my old Greek friends, I decided it was time to come home. That following summer, I stayed for 6 weeks. Now it's my intention to work towards a more permanent arrangement and more frequent visits. Once business is established, I hope to be following in your footsteps, Nicola. I'm out in October, so it would be great to meet up. Sunset drinks and 360 bar, perhaps. No perhaps about it. We're going to be there, Claire.
Yeah, isn't that a marvellous story?
Oh, until then, I should just play catch up with the podcast and keep tuning in, Claire.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean,
awesome.
So many
she's replied to you this morning as well. I see you've replied, and she sent you a lovely reply back. We'll leave you two to get on with that. But what a fabulous thing, isn't it?
It's so weird. I mean, Stupa is really that kind of place. I mean, I can be sitting in Stecky's bar and hear someone mention something like Kensal Rise, and I turn around and say, "Oh, Kensal Rise, I used to live there." And they say, "No, where do you live?" I say, "College Road." "No, College Road." "College Road, what number?" 96. Oh, my mum lived at 98. It's just one of those places. It must attract a certain kind of person. I think that's all about. It's about the energy and the synchronicity, definitely. I love a bit of woo-woo, me.
But you didn't used to. You got a nerve, frankly. Now, who or what has impressed you?
Oh, I've got to tell you. Oh. So Game of Thrones came to an end last episode.
Is this who or what's impressed, or is this Project Update?
No. This is who or what's impressed. Bear with.
Yeah.
We're starting to sound like each other. So I went looking for information about the prequel I've been told is coming, set 5,000 years before, and giving rise to all the people and happenings that happened in Game of Thrones. And I stumbled across a thing that said that they put the writing of it out to 5 different people. George R.R. Martin is not going to be writing the prequel. So they put it out to 5 eminent screenwriters. And the person who won the gig is our very own, now I can't remember her surname, Jane, who is married to Jonathan Ross, who wrote several things, including Kick-Ass.
Yes.
And what is her name? I can't remember.
It begins with a G, I think.
Yeah, I didn't have time to look it up.
No,
sorry,
I'm just going to Google it for you. Jonathan
Ross. She's a very eminent writer now. She's done lots of really good screens.
Jane Goldman.
That's the one.
Yep.
Pink hair, usually.
How brilliant.
I know, a Brit, a woman, and imagine what the fee must be for writing the prequel of Game of Thrones. It must be absolutely astonishingly large.
No, more importantly, every single fan we know is disappointed with the end. Were you?
No, I found it was a very satisfactory ending.
Oh, okay.
It was a surprise. Endings are supposed to be surprising yet inevitable. And I think that ending was surprising, but yet inevitable. And I really think it tied up lots of loose ends in a very satisfactory way. And it also didn't leave it open for anyone, for a sequel, which I think they were aiming at. They didn't really want to leave us feeling dangling. So it worked for me.
Good. Shall I tell you about mine?
Go on then.
It's a billionaire investor and philanthropist called Robert F. Smith, who, do you remember I told you last week about Richard Sands and the man handing his business over to his employees? Yes. Well, Mr. Smith, billionaire investor and philanthropist, went to give the graduation talk at Morehouse College class of 2019, at which he announced he will pay off each graduate's student loan debt in full.
Wow.
He's worth an estimated $5 billion. He's the founder and CEO of Vista Equity Partners, an investment firm focused on software, data, and tech. And he served as commencement speaker at Morehouse last Sunday. During his speech, he announced that his family would establish a grant to pay off student loan debt for all Morehouse graduates in the class of 2019, which is approximately 400 students. This gift is estimated at about $40 million and is in addition to a $1.5 million gift he'd already announced for the university. Now, this is what he said. On behalf of the 8 generations of my family that have been in this country, we're going to put a little fuel in your bus. This is my class, 2019, and my family is making a grant to eliminate their student loans. I know my class will make sure they pay this forward, and let's make sure every class has the same opportunity going forward, because we are enough to take care of our own community. I mean, these stories are just going to burgeon, I know that. But, it's just so good to read about lovely people doing gorgeous, kind things for others because they can. And it doesn't need to be that big. It can be somebody who's a bit short at the checkout and you finish off paying their bill for them.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah, quite.
And the other thing is I will find out for next week. There's another huge company that's doing that thing of giving it to their employees. Yeah. I can't remember who it is, but I'll look it up.
Lovely.
Nice. So we ended on a nice happy note.
Yes, we did end on a nice happy note. And actually that central thing isn't something we've really discussed very much, is it?
No, it isn't. We'll come back to that, I'm sure.
Yes, I think we might.
Love to hear what the listeners think about it.
Yes, would do. I agree.
Speak soon.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.